Thank you, Madam Chair. This is my first meeting of the U.S. Conference of Mayors as a member, so I'm a little bit unfamiliar with the processes. But with respect to this particular resolution, I do think it is a resolution that is worded to be respectful of our military. Also, as a mayor, we see at home the toll of the war. In Gainesville, we have named streets for every fallen soldier from our city. So I think there's no doubt that we are supportive of the military. And also, I think it's supportive of our military that we do seek an end to the war, to bring them home, and to fund their needs as veterans. Of all the resolutions that have come before this body, I've only received comments and support or opposition for one of the resolutions, and that is this one. And that is, I've been urged by my people in Gainesville to support this resolution, and that has been by Vietnam veterans. This is perhaps a divisive issue or one that will not achieve unanimous support. However, as mayors, we see many times where we want our citizens to be able to agree to disagree, but then go home as neighbors. And so I ask that we, as mayors here, agree to disagree, vote our conscience, and go home as colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor.
Thank you. You know, sometimes events like this aren't all about agreeing and getting along. It's about making sausage, and you don't always like to see that being made, and that's what's happening right here. One of the things that as I was reading it, there is no doubt that in our military, that the spending of money has, in a way, gotten out of control. It's the world's largest organization. Nothing is bigger in the world than the U.S. military. And an organization that large, there has to be ways of cutting costs. And I think that if this resolution had spoken to that idea of eliminating waste and fraud, over expense on items that are just not necessary, it might have been a little more palatable to people, the idea of bringing that money home. But we're also in a different cultural time than we were in Vietnam. The people of the United States have, by and large, risen up collectively and honored the people that are serving and the people that come home. And I don't think that this piece right here in any way is denigrating to the military, insulting to them, or puts them in harm's way. It is not providing aid and comfort to the enemy. We have Great Lakes Naval Training Base right next to us. It is the world's largest Navy base. And it is important that those type of activities, the training that goes on there, the education of our sailors is funded properly. But the waste has to be called out and has to be attacked. And until we do that, until the Congress does that, the Senate does that, and the President does that, it will move nowhere. So we do have to address our legislators. We do have to speak directly through them, through these what would you call them? These pieces are legislation in essence. So I do believe that we need to move forward and vote on this. I'm not happy with the way it's written, but I think what it's saying is important because the children and wives of these people who are serving over there right now do need support in our communities and programs that some of this money could help fund. And without it, their kids are not getting good educations. The mothers are not finding the health care that they need. This has to be addressed. And the only way we're going to address it is by cutting the costs in the military so you can steer money in another direction. So I intend to support this legislation.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor Cooper.
Thank you, Madam Chair. After serving on the co-chairing the Military Affairs Committee, and I was approached to support this resolution, I did question certainly many of the issues that have been raised here today. I think it's simple and to the point. We've sat through debates of budget cuts, CDBG cuts, all our budgets being cuts. This is not an action against our troops. It's not an action against not supporting our military at home. Actually, it is to redirect funding back home where we need it. And as mayors in a community, I know we have all heard it. It is a frustrating thing to understand that all our communities around our United States are hurting. We need to be redeveloping, yes, our infrastructure, our schools, our roadways. And I don't know how many times I've been approached to say, why are we spending and spending overseas when our country is hurting here? So I think it's simple. I support it. I put my name on it, and I encourage you to vote to support this bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Cooper. Mayor Smith.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think that when this body adopts any stand, we need to be crystal clear as to what we're standing for. I don't think there's a mayor in here that does not believe that money would be better spent in our communities and building our communities and creating jobs. And certainly when the alternative, if there is a specific alternative of spending it overseas in whatever cause and spending in our communities, I think we all agree upon that, or at least certainly 98% of us agree on that. I think there are many of us who agree that we should end the war. There are others who would not take that kind of stand. I think the issue I have here is that we don't know, we're not clear as to what message is really coming out. And especially even in the debate, we're trying to figure out what message are we sending. I think what we can see is what do all those outside of this body see in this motion, and we can see how the headlines that were reported when this was first introduced. I know the things that came across my desk were mayors take action to support end of war. And then the subheading way down the line was, and redirect funds to communities. I think that this is going to be perceived as one thing that I don't think it was, or perhaps it was intended to be. And so that mixed message, and perhaps the message that will be going out, is what concerns me about this. Mm-hmm. I believe that if we wanted to make a strong statement about the foreign engagements, then we should have been direct on making a strong statement about the foreign engagements. If we want to make a strong statement about redirecting funds that are spent directly back, that should have been the message. The issue I have with this is simply, I think it's a mixed message. It tried to accomplish both things. And while I believe both of them are worthy issues to talk about and worthy debates, I think that when we mix them, we run the risk of having our message as a conference being not only diluted but misunderstood. And in this one, I'm afraid that that's what's going to happen, and I wish that it had taken a little different approach and been very specific as far as what we want to do, which is to redirect, put money in our communities. And I don't think we've accomplished this with this resolution. So as currently written, I can't support it.
Okay, very good. Mayor Salinas.
Thank you very much. I think the clear message that I see somewhat missing from this is a former veteran in the military, as a mayor who has gone to Fort Bragg, North Carolina to bid goodbye to the men and women in uniform. I just wish that we could do something to make sure that we applaud and recognize the service of the men and women. I think we need to be very strong about that, and making sure in this message, in this resolution, that we tell the men and women that we support you every step of the way. I think that's very clear.
Yeah, and it's not there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Well, for that as an amendment, perhaps.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Mayor Nutter, and then I'll go to Mayor Schmidt. Mayor
I'm
Nutter,
sorry.
did you want to
Sound
speak?
like the mayor was not finished.
Oh,
Perhaps,
Mayor Salinas, were
as
you
an-
finished?
Yeah. No, let me make one
Oh.
statement. Okay, thank you. I think that perhaps we could offer an amendment to show that we support our troops unconditionally. I think that's a message that has to be sent in this, perhaps in this resolution. Thank you.
Okay. Wait a minute. There is not, are you making this in the form of an amendment?
Yes, ma'am.
You have to give us the words.
Okay, well, we'll,
They're actually, well,
those were the words
I have a
stated.
point of,
There
actually
Mayor Villaraigosa.
there
Yes, sir.
actually was an amendment that was offered that reads as follows. It says, whereas every member of the United States Conference of Mayors and the Americans they represent support our brave men and women in uniform and their families, whereas the drawdown of the troops should be done in a measured way that does not destabilize the region and that can accelerate the transfer of responsibility to regional authorities. So that would be added
Now,
to
Now,
Brenda.
Mayor Villaraigosa, was that
This was an
offered in
amendment.
committee?
This was an amendment that, as I understand it, was offered in committee. They passed the resolution as written. So this amendment would address the concerns of Mr. Salinas, Mayor Salinas, and so
That's perfect.
Mayor Villaraigosa, can you add more information or tell us more why this amendment
I
was
have no
not
idea.
adopted in
I
committee?
was not in the committee. I can't.
We like that amendment.
Wait,
I wholeheartedly.
One moment. I will, let's not go out of control anymore, okay? All right. The parliamentarian will now read the language that is being offered, and an amendment is, Mayor, I'll come right back to you. Can I?
The amendment is to add 2 whereas clauses at the beginning. The first, whereas every member of the United States Conference of Mayors and the Americans they represent support our brave men and women in uniform and their families. 2, whereas the drawing down of troops should be done in a measured way that does not destabilize the region and that can accelerate the transfer of responsibility to regional authorities, and then continuing with the rest of the whereases just in that order.
Okay. There is a motion then by Mayor Salinas, and there are several seconds on an amendment. And, okay, Mayor.
Mike Bodker, Johns Creek, Georgia, and I appreciate the amendment, and actually this sways me in the direction that I didn't count on going on this, and that's to support it. However, I do, as a point of information, want to point out that was not offered in the committee. I was there in the committee, and it was not offered at that time.
Oh, it wasn't offered in committee?
No,
Yeah,
but I support it wholeheartedly.
Okay, thank you.
I was just
Mayor.
informed that he is correct. It was not offered in committee, but this was an amendment that someone had written, and as you heard, is supported by.
Madam Chair.
Okay, Mayor Dickert, I have Mayor Schmidt to be recognized. He has his arm up, his hand up first, and then I'll come back to this
Thank you.
side. And I've got staff helping me so that we can stay in order. Mayor Schmidt, you're going to pass. Okay, Mayor Dickert, and then the good mayor in the front of you.
Madam Chair, Daniel Brown, Knoxville, Tennessee. As a Vietnam veteran, I just want to say I'm urging passage of this resolution.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Mayor Dickert.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Simply that the gentleman, Mayor Bogart, is exactly right. However, as Vice Chair of the committee, I do accept the amendment and hope that we pass the resolution as amended.
Okay, and then I have Mayor Marks. You had your hand up.
As a military veteran myself, serving during the Vietnam War, not in Vietnam, Vietnam-era veteran, I have to say, as amended, this amendment, we're on the amendment now.
That's right. We're talking about the amendment now
We're on the
because,
amendment.
remember, we have to work our way back to the
Exactly.
resolution. Okay.
This is the very issue that I was concerned about, Mayor Salinas. The very issue I was concerned about, whether or not we have a strong statement indicating that we support our troops overseas. And with that amendment, I can support the resolution.
Okay. Yes, Mayor, please.
Thank you, Mayor Mike Bissonette from Chicopee, Massachusetts. Thank you, Mayor Salinas, very, very much. I come from the home of Westover Air Reserve Base, where I've had the sad duty to preside over 5 flag-draped caskets of young men that we have lost in Iraq and Afghanistan. And I applaud my fellow mayor for his service and appreciate what he said about Vietnam-era veterans. I think we've all learned a valuable lesson from Vietnam, where we may not support the war, but we certainly respect and pay tribute to all of the warriors. And we've learned that distinction the very, very hard way. So I think this is highly appropriate, and I hope it moves several of my colleagues who might not have been inclined to support this to pass this amendment and to move us forward, saying, let's try to get our troops home and our money home. Thank you very much, Madam President.
Okay. Mayor.
Madam President, I just have one other addition to that amendment. I want to get everyone on board with this. I understand the mayor's comment about sausage. We are not going to agree on everything, but that is why we have the opportunity to debate and come to a better understanding and hopefully a better resolution. And the only additions I wanted to make were to add the president, as Mayor Cornett had mentioned, also to add as soon as strategically possible, because I think that we ought to have our generals and military folks involved in this, and also for monies going back, and also to add to reduce the federal debt.
Mayor,
and I will bring you this in
it's
writing.
a friendly amendment to the amendment. And where do you have it? Where it goes? Is it in a now therefore? In the now therefore section?
Oh, Lord. No, this is a new resolve.
It's a new resolve?
Then it's on the resolve. We can do that after we finish this.
Okay, we will take this on. This is a new amendment. And then, Mayor, I'm going to ask you to then move, and then,
We'll wait.
yeah.
We'll do this
But
one first.
we're working on this amendment that has been brought to the floor by Mayor Salinas. Mayor Nutter.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This process that we're going through now, and I appreciate the comments made by many earlier, and I was deeply concerned about the prospect of significant division
Yeah, me too.
within our ranks.
Me too.
Of course, we always have to be mature enough to be able to take on tough challenges, but also recognize that everyone may not feel the same way, and everyone's views really do need to be respected, especially in a nonpartisan organization made up of some great leaders across this country. We talk all the time about jobs, we talk about our budgets, we talk about our people. And so this kind of issue, while federal spending in whatever direction it may go, and it's not only the military that many of us might be concerned about, starts to move us into other realms. So I want to be clear about this part. There's only one Commander-in-Chief of the United States of America. That's the President. And more than likely, the President of the United States and probably some members of Congress may have a little more information about troop withdrawal and troop size and strength and where they're located, now just speaking for myself, certainly than me. And I don't necessarily know that I would want the President or the Congress to send me something telling me how to deploy or redeploy my police officers, because that's my business.
That's right. That's right.
Second, we have to at least recognize in this big, great country that we have to be able to do more than one thing at a time. We should not allow ourselves to get caught in a slightly false debate that we're either going to support military activities or we're going to support cities. We can actually do both in the United States of America. We should be big enough to be able to do that. And so as we look at military budgets and other budgets and the actions that we're trying to have the Congress or the President take, I think the President and the Congress have done a few things that we like. Economic Recovery Act, $787 billion, and proposed transportation and infrastructure funding. There might not ever be enough money for all the things that all of us want to do all the time. But on the other hand, we shouldn't act like nothing's happening. And I think the fact of the matter is that there are some good things happening. So I think the amendments to this particular resolution are very, very hopeful. Hopefully, they've also brought us a little closer together in the course of this conversation and debate, that we support our troops, that yes, of course, we don't want to be in conflict with folks all around the world, and that our troops are getting hurt or are dying, and that the Congress focus and the President focus on domestic spending priorities as well. Those ideas cannot all be in conflict with each other, not in the United States of America. So I look forward to the final language, whenever that happens, on this resolution, and hopefully we can bring this one to a close. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. All right. Are there any other comments? And remember, we're going to be voting on the amendment, and I'm going to have the parliamentarian read the words to the amendment that we're going to be voting on first, and then I'm going to come back to you, Mayor, for your amendment to the resolution also. The first amendment.
The amendment is to insert the following two whereas clauses at the beginning of the resolution. Whereas every member of the U.S. Conference of Mayors and the Americans they represent support our brave men and women in uniform and their families. Whereas the drawdown of troops should be done in a measured way that does not destabilize the region and that can accelerate the transfer of responsibility to regional authorities.
Okay, we all understand the amendment? I will now call for the vote. All in favor of the amendment, please say aye. Please raise your cards.
Aye.
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 We need 2/3.
No, majority.
Yeah, there's plenty.
They don't have to count.
Nay?
Adopted.
It's done.
That was your amendment.
The ayes have it. Okay. Mayor, you have another friendly amendment to add.
I can read it.
And the parliamentarian has the words, and she will read the amendment. And this is a resolve.
This is an amendment to the final resolved clause, and if you agree and there's no objection, we can take all three at the same time. It is to, if I will read it and show you where the amendments are. Be it further resolved that the United States Conference of Mayors calls on the inserting President and U.S. Congress. So it would be inserting President and then another insertion to end the wars as soon as strategically possible, and coming back to the original language, to bring these war dollars home to meet vital human needs, promote job creation, rebuild our infrastructure, aid municipal and state governments, develop a new economy based upon renewable, sustainable energy, and the final amendment, and reduce the federal debt.
It's a good one. Very good.
There's an amendment that has been offered. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. And any discussion?
Nope.
I'm calling for the vote. All in favor of the amendment, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say nay. And the motion passes. Now we vote on the amendment in its entirety with
Resolution as amended.
the resolution as amendment. We're voting on the resolution as amended, the whole thing now. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. And we have one nay. All in favor, it passes. Thank you. Great. Thank you so much, mayors. I mean, we come here and we tackle some of these tough issues, and to have a great open discussion and to get to a product that we can all support out there is wonderful. Thank you so much. I would now like to move a privileged resolution thanking Mayor Rawlings Blake and the City of Baltimore for such a special annual conference. The resolution is before you. It's on your places. And I will just read the resolve clauses. Now, therefore, be it resolved that all here at the 79th Annual Conference of the U.S. Conference of Mayors enthusiastically thank the great mayor of Baltimore, Stephanie Rawlings Blake, her city government, and her citizens for hospitality that has truly refreshed our spirits and fed our souls. I have moved this resolution, and I ask for a second.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. And the motion carries. Thank you very much. And that concludes our resolution discussion. Okay. Before we continue, because we still have a lot of business, and we have with us, and I'd like to introduce him at this point, and this is James D. Hackett, Chairman of ANGA. Mr. Hackett is responsible for overseeing the Alliance's mission and strategic initiative to promote the use of domestic natural gas to help America meet its current and future energy security, economic and environmental needs. He is the chairman and CEO of Anadarko Petroleum Corporation. Mr. Hackett, thank you for your support of the Conference of Mayors, and we look forward to your remarks. And thank you for sitting so patiently as we go through the business of our organization. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, that was a lot of fun, actually. It's a different model than, fortunately, I have to use at work, but it's a wonderful, I think, example of what makes America great, to see people actually exchange good ideas, have debate, be willing to express opinions that might not be politically correct or convenient, and have an outcome that is actually better. So I was very pleased to be here. I want to thank you for the invitation. I want to echo the comments about Mayor Rawlings Blake, because over the years, we only periodically or episodically visit Baltimore, most of us, because it isn't one of those hubs of like the federal government or the investment community in New York. But I continue to be impressed by the progress that Baltimore makes over the years. I had a brief history where I used to be part of the CSX Corporation, which was at that time based in Richmond, Virginia, and we owned the B&O Railroad. And I remember sitting with Mayor Schaefer in a car with the CEO of that company talking about Camden Yards before it was built, and him saying, and it wasn't to ask, it was to say, you're giving us this land to get this done, which was a wonderful thing to see happen. So it's a pleasure to be here to talk about what I think is a very important part of the energy future for all of us as Americans, and it's natural gas. And I think that for all of us, as we deal with things like, is bicycle transport going to be possible, which is, of course, the answer, there are other things we have to power our economy. And the key for all of us is, are they somewhat affordable? Are they actually scalable? And a lot of answers that are provided to us these days aren't quite as scalable as we would like, and perhaps not quite as realistic at this 2 seconds. Now, importantly, a lot of you are already doing work in this area, and one of the things I've got is a video clip about what some of you and your peers are doing with regard to natural gas today. And we might show that, which might be more fun than me talking.
For years, we've known it's true. Our dependence on foreign energy is holding America back. What if we could make a change? What if we could start now? AT&T and Verizon have an answer. UPS does too. Leading companies across our nation are converting their delivery trucks and service vans to American natural gas, saving money, reducing emissions, and advancing U.S. energy security. LA's on board too. The city, known for its freeways and smog, is cleaning up its act, converting virtually its entire bus fleet to natural gas, eliminating 300,000 pounds of emissions every day. From taxis in New York to school buses in Kansas City, communities across the country are clearing the air and driving change. Oklahoma City sees the future. They recently opened yet another natural gas filling station. The price at the pump? About half what you pay for traditional gasoline. Fueling stations are springing up across the country, giving more Americans the opportunity to help our nation declare its energy independence. Fact, America has more natural gas than Saudi Arabia has oil. What if we could make a change? What if we start now? Clean, abundant, ours. North American natural gas. Get on board.
So we want to thank you. So as we look at, we obviously can see what LA has done, and we want to congratulate Mayor Villaraigosa for what he has accomplished in that front in making his city cleaner. I think that one of the things we all have to assess is what are the choices that we have that are available to us today. And I think from our standpoint, as an industry, the one thing we want to provide to all of you is something that is affordable, is abundant, it's domestically located, importantly, because there is a huge national security issue involved. We just got done debating the issue about what do we do with the money we're sending overseas, and is also cleaner in an environment where we want to improve the air quality over time. And I think that what you have in natural gas is something that is here for decades to come. Very different than the first 30 years of my career, and it's changed dramatically in the last 5. When we look at what natural gas does for us today, I think many of us think of it in its traditional uses in home heating, cooking, for making petrochemicals. Some of us may not even understand that most of what we sit on, what we stand on, what we wear is made out of oil-derived products and natural gas particularly, and that's important for us to continue. But I think there's a huge, huge application for this product in power generation and in transportation, as you saw in the case of transportation in the video that was in front of you. And what I think makes natural gas so attractive to start is the cost. You saw the price per gallon up there. I drive a compressed natural gas vehicle in the city of Houston. We have 2 filling stations in the city of Houston. Fairly embarrassing, and I think we're working to change that over time. But importantly, I end up filling my car up for $1.99 a gallon. So it's staying there, and that cost staying there is actually very important. There's no supply competition in that regard at all. The thing that I think people remember is 6 years ago when we had Hurricane Katrina and Rita, we saw gas prices, natural gas prices, along with gasoline, really shoot through the ceiling. And what's changed since that period of time that's made this picture very different is the development of what are called shale gases. And many of you have probably heard of those in the news. I'm going to talk about one of the items that's become very vocal in that regard in a minute. But importantly, what's happened is we have diversified the sources of natural gas in this country. No longer is it primarily based in the Gulf of Mexico and in a few states in the Southwest where weather patterns or hurricanes can dramatically impact the price. The geographic diversity from places like Pennsylvania, Michigan, et cetera, have really changed the dynamic with regard to the cost of natural gas. And so we see for a very long period of time the pricing looking very favorable for cities relative to diesel in particular, which is the thing that we need to all be focused on, is what is going to be most operatingly efficient for all of us as city mayors. The Energy Information Administration, who has no reason to be biased in any particular direction, it's a federal government agency, has projected that the price of natural gas will stay below $7 a decatherm for the next 15 years. Now, $7 a decatherm on an energy equivalent basis is $42 oil. When you look at gasoline and diesel, they are being generated off of a price, as we well know, that's more than double that number. So if the Energy Information Administration is correct about the supplies of natural gas, you have a built-in 50% discount for the foreseeable future on any investments that are made in America in the natural gas arena from the standpoint of fuel sourcing. The abundance is one we learned of quickly there in terms of the fact that most Americans don't know that we actually have more natural gas today than Saudi Arabia has oil. That fact alone will tell you how important this resource is to develop for this nation. Now, 10 years ago, we as an industry thought that liquefied natural gas was the only way to get enough natural gas into this country for home heating and cooking. That was going to be provided by places like Russia, Iran, Venezuela. And today what we see is a complete reversal where the domestic supplies of natural gas are now the base load fuel for this product, and the LNG simply provides a peaking capability to keep price volatility down. So it's dramatically changed. That same federal agency now estimates that over 100 years of natural gas supply exist in this country. Over 100 years, which is the claim that coal has had forever. The difference is it's a lot cleaner, and importantly, the deliverability can be increased dramatically, unlike with other fuel sources. And I think those resources will only continue to grow as technology advances and as we continue to have field histories in terms of production. When you look at the ability to move that natural gas, which all of you are very focused on, just since 1998, we've added 20,000 miles of natural gas pipelines. And that will continue to grow with both the supplies and the market growth that we anticipate for this product. We send $337 billion overseas every year on imported oil, almost $1 billion a day, very much to the point of what we debated earlier this morning. And what that goes to is countries that aren't necessarily friendly to us. Importantly, we can keep that money here for the cities. We can keep that money here for American jobs if we support natural gas. 98% of all the natural gas utilized in North America is produced in North America, and that number will stay constant for quite some time to come. Natural gas employs 3 million Americans, 31 states have over 10,000 jobs now engaged in natural gas. 31 states, where it used to be about 6 or 7. It contributes $385 billion to the U.S. economy. It produces about 50% of the CO2 that coal produces in power production. About 20% of the NOx emissions, which all of you are very familiar with, is an ozone-inducing product. It also has a fraction of any particulate, sulfur dioxide, or mercury. So when we talk about cleaning up our cities, meeting EPA standards, this is a very important product to achieve that. Getting electricity, regardless of form, is not the objective, because getting electricity, regardless of form, produces more ozone produces more CO2. So the form of how you produce that electricity is actually terribly important. Importantly, at the federal level, and I was particularly impressed by Mayor Nutter's comments about the President and the Chief of Staff, is that we, at the end of the day, now have that President and now have all of his cabinet secretaries talking about the role that natural gas is going to play in this country. That took a while to accomplish because of its past. But now from a national security perspective and from a clean air perspective, the administration is suggesting its use in both the transportation and in the power sectors. Natural gas fuels are importantly, are very efficient for you in terms of high octane capability. They also are less costly. The studies we've done on fleet vehicles show that up to 30% savings occur from diesel fuel on the full cycle benefits of natural gas. So I think if you're looking for an efficient answer in your cities, this is one. And I think that what we're going to continue to do is try to convert our fleets and our industry to these products. You've seen what other industrial customers are doing. You've seen what the city of Los Angeles is doing. We need support for these kinds of things from all of you in the audience as well. And I think that we can do this. Now, one thing that you've heard a lot about that I'll just briefly touch on is hydraulic fracturing. We have the benefit in the industry of having done this for about 60 years on about 1 million applications. And we are stunned at the lack of science that is actually being propounded around this subject. On the other hand, understanding completely that people need to have transparency about something that we are doing within their city limits, within their states. And the American Natural Gas Association, as well as Anadarko, have pushed a number of industry associations to adopt, and now it's universal, to adopt what is called fracfocus.org. And that is a disclosure mechanism for all chemicals used in hydraulic fracturing. It's going to be done through the Groundwater Protection Council, which some of you may be aware of. It's a state-run organization. It is the way to get this done since geology and water conditions are very local at best and regional at worst and not countrywide. And so one of the things we're trying to do is at least get off the table any concerns about lack of transparency and the issues of water handling. I promise you we're very serious about that and have spent a great deal of time and money making sure that the federal government and state governments are engaged in that process. And we'll continue to improve that particular issue in the industry, and I think one that you'll be very satisfied with at the end of the day. So what we've got is a final answer is that we've got a product that works if it's done prudently, if it's transparent, if we have good regulation, and we don't have hysterical regulation. We actually have an answer for America, particularly in the transportation sector, particularly in the power sector, to produce cleaner air, to produce more national security, and we can do it at an incredibly low cost relative to the alternatives. And with that, I want to thank you all for listening and being patient. Have a great day here. It's been fun kind of watching you all in action. Thank you. Thanks, man.
Thank you, Mr. Hackett. And members, I just want to tell you how proud I am of the work that we have done with our business and with the resolutions. And especially looking at Resolution 59, I have asked staff so that you can take it home with you to bring the final resolution to you so that when you are asked questions about this resolution, you have it in your hands. We are a proud organization, and we are reasonable people, and we are common sense people, that we work on an issue and come together and have a product that we can all go home and support. So I thank you for your hard work, because I think we have a great product, and I think our citizens are going to see that and recognize that we are all one, and they can agree. There probably is nothing in this resolution that no one can disagree with. So thank you again very much for all of the hard work. And so you will have that resolution for you going home. I am now very pleased and honored to present a report from the nominating committee on behalf of Long Beach Mayor Bob Foster, who chaired this committee. And Mayor Foster had to leave, and he had asked that I present his report. The nominating committee met on Saturday, June 18th, 2011, and submit the following names for your consideration and vote by the membership of the United States Conference of Mayors for the following positions on Monday, June 20th. For the office of President, Mayor Antonio Villaraigosa of Los Angeles, California. For the office of Vice President, Mayor Michael Nutter of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. For the office of Second Vice President, Mayor Scott Smith of Mesa, Arizona. For trustee, Mayor Kevin Johnson of Sacramento, California. Mayor John Marks of Tallahassee, Florida. Mayor Stephanie Rawlings Blake of Baltimore, Maryland. And Mayor Ashley Swearingen of Fresno, California. For the advisory board, Mayor Stephen Benjamin of Columbia, South Carolina. Mayor Ardell Brady of Rochester, Minnesota. Mayor Christopher Cabaldon of West Sacramento. Mayor Anthony Fox of Charlotte, North Carolina. Mayor William Kanoy of Hilo, Hawaii. Mayor Mitch Landrieu of New Orleans, Louisiana. Mayor Kim McMillan of Clarksville, Tennessee. Mayor Kenneth Miyagishima of Las Cruces, New Mexico. Mayor Pedro Segarra of Hartford, Connecticut. Mayor Mark Stododa of Little Rock, Arkansas. Mayors, I present the slate before you. May I have a motion? The motion is made. Is there a second? There's a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. And the ayes have it. Congratulations to all of the new officers, trustees, and advisory board members. Mayors, now it is my great pleasure to introduce the 69th President of the U.S. Conference of Mayors, Mayor Antonio Villaraigosa. And the
Let's do the gavel shot. I like that.
Yeah.
Let's move over this way.
Yes. And no, I will step aside. And now the Mayor Smith, Mayor Nutter, then your top three officers.
I understand that as things go in this organization, as soon as I get an opportunity to speak, I have to give not just the gavel, but the microphone back to Tom Cochran. So let me call Tom Cochran up.
We love you. Several years ago, Mayor Beverly O'Neill was our president. We had a leadership meeting in Long Beach, California. Right up the road, this gentleman here, his child was getting married. But Beverly called him and said, come on down and be with us. Stand up, Beverly, past president. So, Willie Brown is here, and he is also one of your fathers. So we appreciate the way that Mayor Villaraigosa has joined with us. From the day that Mayor O'Neill asked him to be involved. This is, we live in a very turbulent time. The Great Recession since the Great Depression. We're so fortunate to have the Mayor of Los Angeles to lead this organization at this time. So we welcome you, Mayor Villaraigosa, as our president. And I want to tell you, tell our members that recently I was in Los Angeles and we went to his home, and we had my staff there and his staff there, and the kids were coming in and out. And Lou was coming in and out, the dog was coming in and out. We had 8 hours of working on next year. So he's going to be a great leader for us, and we look forward to our meeting, leadership meeting in July. So I'd like to present a video honoring and saluting our new president, Mayor Antonio Villaraigosa of Los Angeles.
Los Angeles has always led the way. Today, we come together. One city, Angelenos all. To transcend our differences, to meet our collective challenges, and to define our mutual dreams. To remember where we came from, and to decide where we need to go. Fellow Angelenos, I will never forget where I came from, and I will always believe in the value of every Angeleno. This is truly our town, and we all have a contribution to make. If you don't know about the Watts Towers, it was built by an Italian immigrant named Simon Rodia over the course of 34 years. This was a guy who'd come home from work, bring back broken glass, bottle caps, and other disregarded objects, and essentially created this beautiful work of art that's lasted over time, and it's become a metaphor for LA. This city of dreams, the city of hope, this city where the world comes together. Simon Rodia was asked to explain the meaning of his work. I had in mind to do something big, and I did it. Fellow Angelenos, let's dare to dream. Let's dare to dream together. I'm speechless. Thank you for putting that video together. It was a surprise. Didn't hear that there would be a video until last night. Thank you to the Conference of Mayors, to Tom Cochran, to Elizabeth Kautz for that very, very special introduction. Mayors, please put your hands together for Mayor Stephanie Rawlings Blake and the great people of Baltimore. Thank you so much for your warmth and hospitality, for taking us into your town and treating us and feeding us like family. Baltimore has given so much to our country and to our history. The Star-Spangled Banner, the fiction of Edgar Allan Poe, not to mention 5 seasons of The Wire. It's fitting that we come here to one of America's most historic cities at this critical time when so much is at stake for so many of our people. I want to thank Tom Cochran and the folks at the U.S. Conference of Mayors for fighting for the vast majority of Americans who silently depend on our metro economies for their lives and for their livelihoods, and for reminding us that cities play a role in virtually everything that matters. And of course, thanks to our outgoing president, Mayor Elizabeth Kautz of Burnsville, Minnesota. Whether rescuing community development block grants from the chopping block or carrying the urgent message of local leadership on global climate protection, Mayor Couts has led the conference with a tireless spirit and a no-nonsense attitude. Thanks to her hard work, we're hitting the ground running in 2011. So please join me once again in a heartfelt thank you to Mayor Elizabeth Couts. Mayors, there is no greater compliment than the confidence of your colleagues. I've said many times that I understand full well that while I may be the mayor of a city with a big stage, that every one of us, small city, medium-sized city, big city, all have the same challenges. And I want to thank you for 6 years of learning from so many of you. I want to thank you for the confidence you've placed in me. It's my hope that in the year to come, we can grow even stronger. That will be not just a collection of mayors, but a catalyst for change. You see, we need to lead the national conversation about what America must do to put people back to work. It's fitting that we're here, meeting just a few miles outside of the Beltway. Hopefully they can hear us all the way from Baltimore, because the thinking has got to change inside the Beltway bubble. And that's what it is, a Beltway bubble. Our cities are far removed from the partisan paralysis and the philosophical abstractions debated in Washington. And we saw that here today. You know, there are differences among us, but every single time that we have had a difficult issue before us, we've been able to figure out where the common ground is. Every single time, whether it was the resolution on the war, whether it was last year's resolution on immigration, every single time we have figured out. You see, our mayors know better. Our mayors know what a double-digit unemployment rate means and the real pain our families suffer every single day. As mayors, we can see the wreckage of the Great Recession all around us. We have entire cities swamped by the mortgage crisis, whole neighborhoods left high and dry to blight and rot. In community after community, we've seen families cut adrift when an anchor employer pulls up stakes for a $2 a day labor abroad. Now, the stock market is back to 12,000, and that's supposed to be good news. It's good news, at least for some people. But mayors know better. We know what's good for Wall Street isn't necessarily good for Main Street. By and large, throughout this crisis, it's been our nation's mayors responding creatively, as first responders always do, manning the front lines, making the most difficult choices in the toughest circumstances, and working to protect the most vital services our people depend on for their daily lives, from streets to police to safe drinking water. Now, this is a bipartisan organization, and mayors here, the U.S. Conference of Mayors, have taken on issues like pension reform. We've not divided between Republican and Democrat. We all know that these pension and benefits aren't sustainable right now. And mayors, you and I have seen something else. We've seen how even in tragedy, in Tucson, Tuscaloosa, and Joplin, the worst calamities can bring out the best in our people. We know what's possible when a community comes together for a common purpose without rancor or party label. You know, if you hire a legislator to talk, you hire a mayor to act. And the American people desperately need us to act now. Mayors, I would humbly submit to you that this is our time. This is our time to lead. We have to be willing to speak the truth and speak boldly with one voice. And it starts with this truth. We've got our work cut out for us. But it would be wrong to ignore our critics and the obstacles in our way. We've all seen firsthand the campaign to marginalize our cities. We've seen it typecast on various news outlets, but it's important to keep the debate rooted in some historic perspective. You see, it's an old story, part of an age-old debate that has existed between the forces of ruralism and the forces of pluralism. The ruralists, of course, found voice most famously in the philosophy of Jean-Jacques Rousseau, who called cities, and hear me now, the abyss of the human species. It's a view that's always looked upon cityways with suspicion, casting our cities as unwelcoming clusters of other Americans who can't possibly be real Americans. But the pluralists always knew better. They actually knew it from the start. They knew cities were about the future. They knew it from the first mud walls of the first city ever built. Cities always stood as islands of civilization in a vast and unpredictable world. Across the globe, cities rose as centers of trade, as crossroads of culture, as meccas of progress. We owe our wealth to cities, and we owe our wealth to metro economies. We owe our deepest values to the birth of democracy and civil society that sprung up in our cities, where without the luxury of space, people learned to coexist, where they gave up the go-alone survival mentality in favor of a belief in a greater human enterprise. In the 21st century, our cities stand as our best hope for the future. Now, today we released our Metro Economies report. And once again, as metro economies go, so goes America. Our cities are not just the engine, they're the engine, the axles, the chassis, and the door handles of the nation's economy. Our metro areas generate some 90% of our gross domestic product. We've known that for some time. But something new. Next year, they'll account for 94% of new jobs. Now, I want you to think for a moment. If LA were a country, we'd be the 18th largest economy in the world, bigger than Taiwan or Saudi Arabia. Philadelphia's economy is larger than Argentina. Houston's is bigger than Venezuela. Now, it's time to come together. It's time to say that the era of the city versus the suburb is over. We can no longer afford to see our competition at our city limits. Not when our nation's economic future depends so clearly on the growth of vibrant economic and cultural zones strong enough to compete across the globe with Shanghai and London. In fact, we know it's no longer Chicago, it's Chicagoland. LA isn't so much a city as a regional powerhouse, connected by the nation's busiest seaports, spanning a media market of 18 million people. And across our country, our mayors get it. Seattle and King County aren't competing, they're marketing jointly to create jobs. And they've teamed up with their neighbors in Canada to win the battle of the Pacific Rim. Now I'll tell you where we need to start. We've got to break the old Washington mindset with its fixation on funding states at the expense of our metro economies. Much as the pluralists did in another era, we have to force the question, where would we be in the United States of America without our cities? As Tom Cochrane likes to say, if you take New Orleans out of Louisiana, what have you got? You got East Dakota. In 2008, our top 10 metro areas, and I want you to hear me for just a moment, our top 10 metro areas approached the combined economic output of the People's Republic of China. Put another way, New York, Los Angeles, Chicago's economic output are greater than that of 44 other individual states, roughly the equivalent of the economy of France. Yet, we keep shortchanging our cities. It's simple. If we fail to keep our metro economies competitive, the national economy cannot and it will not thrive. We need to take our message to the American people. The last thing our recovery needs is another punch in the gut. Today, we released the 2011 jobs forecast for the nation's 363 metro economies. Now, we can see some encouraging evidence of a dawning recovery. 88% of our metros are projected to experience some job growth in 2011. We know, however, that the recovery has been uneven at best. Nearly a third of our cities will continue to languish through December with double-digit joblessness, including my city, as a matter of fact. What's worse, almost 50 metropolitan areas will essentially lose a decade. They won't get back to their pre-recession unemployment levels for another 10 years. Manufacturing centers like Detroit and Toledo aren't expected to recover jobs until 2020 and beyond. This recovery is going to be a long haul, everybody, and we need to all get help, and we need to work together to get it from Washington. So, mayors, we cannot afford to be timid. We need to tell the Congress loud and clear, at least observe any good doctor's Hippocratic oath. Do no harm. With anemic job projections, the last thing we should do is anything that will slow a speedy recovery. So that means that first and foremost, we can never play politics with the full faith and credit of the United States of America. We cannot stay outside of the debate around the credit debt limit. If we do, we will suffer as a consequence. We have to say that it's time to stop the games. It's time for Congress to get on with the serious business of legislating short and long-term solutions to our jobs crisis. Our cities continue to live with a threat that we could lose $4 billion in the Congress if they cut the CDBG program. When they cut CDBG, they're balancing the budget on the backs of working people, the very families struggling hardest to stay afloat. Now, in too many of our cities, job growth is being choked by traffic and saddled by a sagging infrastructure. We have bus and rail systems at capacity. Our aging roads and bridges are undermining our ability to meet the nation's future economic output. We need to say now is the time to put millions of people back to work by making long overdue investments in our future infrastructure needs. It was interesting. At the Transportation Committee, I don't think I've ever been to a committee with so many people. Why? Because everybody in that committee and everybody in this city, if we could have had a committee of the whole, everybody would have been there. The fact of the matter is, according to the American Society of Civil Engineers, we have a $2.1 trillion need. With China investing at over 3 times our current rate and even footing the bill to build railways across Europe, we need to pick up the shovels and pick up the pace. We need to tell Congress to press the button on America Fast Forward. Now, we heard from Rahm Emanuel the other day, the new mayor of Chicago. And Rahm talked about an innovative proposal that could and may get bipartisan support. We need to get behind innovative proposals. We have, as you know, a bipartisan financing plan that can create nearly 1 million jobs. It can put people to work today by allowing local governments to creatively leverage local dollars for roads and rail and we need to make the broader case. With our economic heart faintly beating in our cities, tomorrow's infrastructure investments must be more metropolitan focused, more forward-looking, and more environmentally sustainable. It's time to prioritize spending on metropolitan transportation infrastructure needs. Now, I like to say that my friend, Mr. Nutter, is the king of sound bites. And I'm not sure I got this from you, but let me just share something with you. We got to stand for the proposition that we need to connect people to jobs when we create infrastructure. We don't need another bridge to nowhere that connects the ducks to the geese. That's right. We need bridges that connect people to jobs. We have to stand up for the unemployed workers. We have to be willing to say, like Jeff Immelt said to the president, representing the business community, that with historic joblessness, it makes no sense whatsoever for the House to repeal workforce training programs. How do you get people back to work that are unemployed currently in sectors of the economy that aren't working? You got to give them the skills to put them back to work. We got to reward work. We need to stand for the millions who will see their unemployment checks disappear at the end of the year with no prospects in sight. And mayors, and I think today's resolution understands that, we need to stand for a new world order in federal spending. It's time to bring our investments back home. We can't keep on building roads and bridges in Baghdad and Kandahar and not Baltimore and Kansas City. We can't keep on squeezing non-discretionary, non-defense spending and make the investments we need as a nation to compete. Not when we spend $2.1 million on defense every single minute. Did you hear me? $2.1 million on defense every single minute. Not after nearly $1.2 trillion spent and over 6,000 lives lost in Iraq and Afghanistan. In 1971, someone mentioned earlier, the U.S. Conference of Mayors proudly went on record calling for the withdrawal of U.S. forces from Vietnam. Today we had a debate, and it was a great debate. And it's another reason why I'm so proud to be your president. We had people get up and speak about their service to the nation. We had our war veterans and our former military personnel get up and talk about honoring our troops. And it's time for us once again to make that call. And we made it in a way that says we support our men and women in uniform, that these brave soldiers have served our country proudly, and now we must honor them by addressing our pressing needs at home. We have to invest in our own economy and create jobs for them to come to. And very importantly, we've got to invest in our next generation. And that begins by taking on the one issue we all know will ultimately determine our future course as a nation. You know, there was a time when mayors said that education wasn't in our bailiwick. And I want to acknowledge my friend, Mayor Johnson, because Mayor Johnson has been screaming against the wind. And today, a few days ago, we had an opportunity to have a forum. And in that forum, very interestingly, those ideas weren't Democratic or Republican. There's a consensus in this organization, and we passed a resolution to that effect. We said, let's make this the year that the Conference of Mayors takes on the lead on the pressing issue of education reform. Now, whether you're a Democrat or a Republican, whether you have children in our public schools or not, whether as mayors we have the responsibility of running the school district, every one of us all have skin in the game. We know that the future of our cities, more than anything else, depends on providing every single child with access to a quality education. In LA, without mayoral control, and I wanted it, we've been able to elect and re-elect a pro-reform majority on the school board. We've passed one of the most transformative public school choice resolutions in the country. Gives parents a vote and a voice in their child's education. With the mayor's partnership, we've taken over the lowest performing schools in the most underserved neighborhoods. Every day, we disprove the doubters by demonstrating that it's possible to turn around failing schools and bring opportunity to urban campuses. Right here in Baltimore and around the country, in places like New Haven, Pittsburgh, Chicago, Boston, and Detroit, mayors are leading the way. Teachers and school districts are coming together to give students and teachers what they need: higher expectations and greater accountability. A real evaluation system based on multiple measures that doesn't stamp every teacher with the same satisfactory grade. In my school district and in school districts across the state, our state, Ashley, 0.001% of teachers are dismissed. In my school district, 98.3% of our teachers get a satisfactory grade. We need a tenure process that teachers can be proud of, where tenure is earned and comes with a significant salary increase. We need to end the notion that says the last hired should be the first fired. This is an absurd and archaic policy, and it's costing us far too many excellent teachers. We need to support the expansion of high-performing public charter schools. We need to take the Race to the Top program local and allow cities and districts to qualify where they lack a willing state partner. You know, mayors have done it before, and mayors can and must do it again. We can do it if we remember our history. The year was 1932. There were 14 million Americans that were unemployed. Veterans were marching on Washington. Homeowners everywhere were underwater. Responding to the call of the nation's mayors, Congress enacted a $300 million federal assistance program, the first in the nation's history. A few months later, they came together to write the charter of the U.S. Conference of Mayors. Mayors led us out of the Great Depression. Mayors led on civil rights. Mayors led when the AIDS epidemic hit. Mayors stood with Mandela when it wasn't popular. There's a magic when mayors stand together. Let's unleash that magic. Let's pull together. Let's send a message to Washington. It's time to stop playing games and start doing the hard work of the American people. It's time to start investing in our future again. It's time to put our people back to work. It's time to accelerate the withdrawal of our troops. It's time for our nation's mayors to take the lead. It's our time. Thank you so much. And now it's my honor, my first act as the president of this conference, to read a resolution. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the mayors of the United States, joined by their families and staff, the Conference of Mayors staff, and all other conference participants assembled in this great 79th Annual Conference of Mayors here in Baltimore, express their deepest appreciation and thanks to Mayor Kautz for her strong leadership of this organization through a time marked by political change and continuing economic uncertainty. And be it further resolved that the U.S. Conference of Mayors expresses its warmest wishes for Mayor Kaut's continued success and achievement, and wishes her all the best that life can offer now and into the future. And now, members, I think I have the unanimous support to say we are adjourned. Thank you very much.